Hey, over the past few years, I have gradually been building up my Daniel Smith watercolor collection. A little 5mm tube here, a little 5mm tube there, and slowly but surely, it's now become quite a sizable collection. However, I've never really looked at them as one group to see all the colors that I have, and that is what we're going to be doing in this video, swatching out all the Daniel Smith watercolors that I have, thinking about the ones that I want to replace, and also thinking about if there are any gaps. It is a long chatty one, so grab yourself your favorite drink, stretch, get comfy, and let's start. Okay, so let's start with Buff Titanium, which is one of my go-tos for urban sketching. And it's a color that I am running out of, so it is one that I am thinking to add to my replace and replenish list. It's just like a really nice, warm, dirty white. Is the best way that I can describe it. Then following that, and it's PW6 2.1. Really need to figure out what that's called. But yeah, like minuscule amount left, but that's okay. Next I have Hansa Yellow Light, and this is actually a color that I have two of. One was kindly gifted to me, and the other one was one of the colors that I bought. So a lot of these colors are from my very first travel palette, and it's just a really nice, cool yellow, one that I just go back to time and time again. It's nice and bright. It gives me really a clean green, so I can't fault it. Then we have Hansa Yellow Medium, and this find that it is always handy to have empty half pans around when you're opening certain brands. Specifically, this actually seems like a comedy show. Like, oh my, you would think I was getting punked. Okay, so let me get rid of this because this will spill over as well. And let's add that to our new half pan. Let's start. I'm gonna go clean up and then come back. Okay, I am back. I have labeled my half pan and cleaned my hands, and let's swatch out this Hansa Yellow Medium. So this, as I was saying, was a gift, so it wasn't actually one that I had on my main palette, but I am very pleasantly surprised. I tend to like and lean towards warmer yellows anyway. So this is Hansa Yellow Medium, and it is PY97. So it's one that I haven't used before, but I actually quite like. What I tend to use is this, which is Nickel Azo Yellow, and it is PY150. And I just absolutely love this yellow because, as you will see, I quite like really warm yellows. I think they make the nicest kind of natural looking greens. I love the luminosity that it has. I love how it glazes. It's just a really, really nice yellow, and my love for it, I think, was also just intensified by the fact that I love quinacridone gold. And this is, I feel, the element that makes it like pop and make it so nice and bright. So that's Nickel Azo Yellow. Then another warm yellow is New Gamboge. And again, we're just progressively getting warmer and warmer. And all of these, I think about having like the greens that they will make and the mixes that they will make. And they are also just beautiful on their own. Just really nice. And quite different. They're all very much different. So I feel like the Buff Titanium is kind of my go-to color when I'm doing urban sketching and I'm trying to recreate walls, or I'm trying to like, I don't know, like dull down a color a little bit, or if I want to do beaches or cliffs or rocks, buff titanium. My Hansa Yellow Light is a color that I tend to turn to when I'm mixing like really bright, fresh greens, or if, for example, I am just like brightening up one of the pre-mixed greens that I have already that I'm going to swatch out in a little bit. The Hansa Yellow Medium is a new addition, so I haven't used it up until now. And again, I guess the way that I would use it would be to make greens and to mix in my greens. I tend to really like, love and enjoy using warm yellows, so I feel like this is a really nice addition to my palette. The Nickel Azo Yellow, again, I really tend to love, especially because I like the luminosity of it. I think it shows even more so when you're looking at quinacridone golds, and that is probably what I would use more than the Nickel Azo Yellows. And then we have New Gamboge, which again is heading towards Quin Gold, which is the color that I absolutely love. And the thing that I love about these is that they make really nice, is it going to be explode? Really nice, exploding-ish, nice, natural looking greens, but then they also look really lovely on their own. This is exploding a tiny bit, so I'm just going to pour some out because I don't want that to go to waste. Just cleaning out the lid. Okay, so Quin Gold, this is made up of PY150, which is the Nickel Azo Yellow, plus PO48. Let me just swatch that out. And as you can see, this is like the warmest of them all. Nice and orangey in mass tone, but then also as it gets lighter and lighter, it just has such a strong yellow poking through, and that is the Nickel Azo Yellow. Quin Gold is just a color that I have loved across different brands. I find that the ones I tend to love most are the ones where you can see even more of the yellow coming through. I just feel like it's really nice to glaze over paintings and to instantly bring warmth, and it's just a color that I go back to time and time again. So my favorite one is the Roman Schwal one, but I think as a whole I just love the color, so it is one that I really enjoy using. Then we have Aussie Red Gold. So before I had Quin Gold, this was my go-to equivalent of that. It is made up of PY83, PR101 and PV19, so it's a really interesting mix, but it's just so bright. It's just absolutely beautiful. You can see it does definitely lean a lot more orange, but again, I just really like that luminosity that it has, that like super bright quality that it has. It does have quite a few pigments in it, like it has 3, and it's such an interesting mix because I wouldn't imagine a PV19 inside this. So I don't tend to use it as much for mixing, I just tend to use it as is. Then we have quinacridone burnt orange, and this is PO48, which is the other element of quinacridone gold, and it is a color that is going to be a pigment, sorry, that is going to be discontinued, unfortunately, which is why I bought a big tube, so if worse comes to worse, I can make my own quinacridone gold. I've made a whole separate video like talking about it and comparing the different quinacridone golds, so that if this is a hue that you really like, or this is a pigment that you can really enjoy, you can just see the comparisons and get whichever one you like most. In honesty, I got this more so because of the quinacridone gold aspect. I don't tend to use oranges that much on their own, although I do find them helpful in mixing sometimes. And it does feel like it would be a generally like helpful color, especially if I wanted to do skin tones. So that is PO48. Daniel Smith did say that they had quite a lot of stock, so there is still time. And this is like tiny bit left, and it is burnt sienna, like hardly anything in here. It is one I will probably replace. We'll see. I feel like burnt sienna is just one of those colors that's staple in every palette, you know? I'm quite surprised that I don't have a burnt ochre, but to me, like burnt sienna, burnt ochre, just no-brainer staples. So I am probably going to replace it. The only reason that I was maybe hesitating is that I wanted to see, Daniel Smith has so many browns, so I didn't know if there would be a brown that I would like and enjoy a little bit more, but I do think that ultimately I quite like burnt sienna. So look, even with the crimper, it's like hardly anything left, so should probably add that to the list of things to replace. Then next we have another one that, again, hardly any left, but I've got a replacement, and this is quinacridone rose. And just before I go, actually, burnt sienna is it PBR7 and PR101? Which one? PBR7. And then this is quinacridone rose, one of my favorite colors. There is literally hardly I need to let this go. But look at that. It's so incredibly beautifully bright. And this is one of the colors that really made me appreciate the difference between professional grade and student grade paints, because I just felt like, yeah, when I started painting, I had my Daniel Smith in the same palette as my Cotman. Even now, actually, I do. So half the palette is Cotman, half the palette is Daniel Smith. So I was kind of just, idea being that if I want to eliminate the pressure of using professional grade paints, I could just use whichever one I felt at the time. So I basically had replicated the same colors, in one being professional grade Daniel Smith, the other one being the Cotman. And honestly, the Quin Rose was just so beautifully bright that I kept using it. And then the Sap Green was another one of those colours that I just absolutely kept loving with the Daniel Smith. And then very quickly I noticed that I wasn't picking up the Cotman at all. I was just using that palette for my Daniel Smith colours. And that is true till this day. So that's PV19. Then we have Opera Rose. And that's the thing I find crazy, because the Quin Rose to me almost looks like an Opera Rose. But the light fastness should be better. Although it doesn't look light fastness. It says 1A. Crazy. Because it looks like it should be fugitive, but it's just so... And then things are relative, because as soon as I put down the Opera Rose, I'm like, wow, that is bright. That is so bright and so beautiful. I still have plenty left, so that's good. Then we have Pyrrole Scarlet. Admittedly, I feel like this is a colour that I got because it makes sense to get. You know, you want like warm and cool versions of the primaries, but I don't tend to use reds as often. So it is one that doesn't get that much attention, but it does tend to explode, as we're seeing now, and thus ultimately ends up being in my palettes. But yeah, like it's a nice red. And I'm not gonna lie, although like I'm not the biggest, like reds don't tend to excite me that much. Despite that, I do kind of feel their absence, because I feel like without a red, just because it's a primary color, it's really hard to recreate bright pop of red if I want to. Do you know what I mean? And that is PR255, light fastness 1. Then we have Quinacridone Purple, really beautiful color. It is PV55, light fastness 1, and I think it's series 4. I feel like it's one of my more expensive colors, but maybe I am wrong. It is series 2, and just absolutely beautiful. You know, interesting, because I was thinking about getting amethyst, and I may still do it, but I'm almost like wondering, do I need that when I have this? You know, like this is such a beautiful purple. And actually this reminds me of the fact that I also have sticks, watercolor sticks that I haven't written out. And I'm pretty sure I have Carboxazole purple or Carboxazole violet in stick form. Then this is Quinacridone Violet, which is PV19. Light fastness, excellent, wonderful. I love how moody it is, like such a beautiful, moody, red leaning purple. Almost reminds me of what like I would expect a Bordeaux to be. I really like both of them. Then Rose of Ultramarine, and it's interesting because these, like the Opera Rose, the Quin Purple, the Quin Violet, all these colours I kind of got later on in my journey, so they're not in my main palette. They're colours that I have to go out of my way to take and like add to my palette, so it's actually quite helpful doing this so that I know the colors that I have and I can try and figure out what colors I want to be in my main palette. This is Rose of Ultramarine. So essentially I tend to change my palettes quite a lot, especially like the travel palette. If I'm going on holiday or I'm going on an art trip, I tend to think about the colors that I'm going to see and I'm going to be inspired by and change my palette accordingly. But I think it would be nice to have a main palette that just houses all these colors. This is stunning. You know, I don't tend to use Rose of Ultramarine as much, surprisingly, because of the granulation. Like, I like it, but I don't want it all the time. But this color, like as it is, even without granulating, I would absolutely love. It has PB29 and PV19, and it is a beautiful color. I can't fault that. But even if it stayed as it is, without breaking up, which is going to do as it dries, I would be very, very happy. And then we have this color that is a massive disappointment, and that is Cobalt Violet. It is PV49, and I still remember the first time I swatched it because I thought the color was like expired or broken, or I was just confused. But in a nutshell, it's just like super low tinting strength. I mean, yeah, it's just a total waste. And it's not cheap either. I think when I got it, I was quite new to watercolors. I didn't know that much. And the video that I'd seen highly recommended it. So I got it. But it's series 3. So it's the most expensive colors we've swatched out thus far. As you can see, it's just super low tinting. Doesn't matter what I do. And it's been like that from the moment that I bought it. Like, I don't know if it's binder, I don't know what it is. Basically, it's just I should throw it away, but you know, hope is the last to die. But I just have no explanation for this. It's just rubbish. Yeah, so that hasn't changed basically. Then next we have Moon Glow. Moon Glow is PG18, PB29, PR177. It is one of those really nice special granulating colors. It's a series 2 color, and look at that. I mean, this color is absolutely beautiful for shadows. Beautiful on its own, but also shadows, backgrounds, rocks, because not only does it have a wonderful range, but also it can get super, super, super dark, and it will granulate as it dries. Next we have Shadow Violet, which again was like, a relatively new addition for me, and it has PB29, PG18 and PO73. It's a series 2 color. You can already see the Moon Glow starting to change. So this is Shadow Violet. They're quite similar, but out of the two, I do prefer the Moon Glow. I do feel like the Moon Glow has a little bit of, it's darker, leans a little bit more blue. The Shadow Violet is nice, but I feel like maybe because of the red, it leans a little bit more brown. Then Payne's Grey, another color that is almost over. It has PB29, PBK9 and series 1 color, and probably another one that I should replace. So can you see the burnt sienna? It's like dried. It's a little bit underwhelming. Like, there's not that much granulation. The color, it's had quite a bit of a drying shift. So that was one of the reasons that I was kind of wondering, should I replace it because it's a staple and I love the greys that I can make with it, or should I look for another one? Daniel Smith has quite a wide range. I love this Payne's Grey. It's like a nice bluey Payne's Grey, not as blue as the Winsor & Newton, but still just a really, really nice Payne's Grey. I can't fault it. And I definitely should replace it. Then we have Silver, which was a gift. And it's interesting because I don't tend to use, or, you know, I didn't, exploding. I should just have the half pans ready, really, at this point. I don't want to fill a full pan. Oh, here we go. Just look at this. it's not ridiculous. Not fill it as much as I did, and then just use my brush to clean it all up and put it into the half pan. This is the one annoying thing about Daniel Smith. This mainly happens to me with the Daniel Smith watercolours. I'm starting to run out of half pans. I have such a, like, I have a palette that literally just has a random assortment of half pans. I'm surprised. It looks like, or almost like opaque. Should it be opaque? I thought like I would hardly see it, but this looks like a solid. Let me put it over the, can you see that if I put it over the silver? I am quite impressed by that. It's a lot more opaque than I was anticipating. I thought it would be a light shimmer, but you can see we can't even see where I wrote silver anymore. A pleasant surprise. Now I'm gonna let these dry and then we can move on to the greens and the blues. And as you can see, that is what makes up the majority of my collection. So now we have sap green, which is an oldie but a goodie. It's the color that I have absolutely loved since I first started painting with Daniel Smith. It's playful, it's natural. I can't fault it. It is made up of PO48, PY150 and PG7. And I laugh because obviously we've already discussed PO48, but that was a part of the reason why I bought a big tube. So I have the small one that I got initially, and then I just got a big tube of sap green because it's a color I really enjoy, and I want to continue enjoying it even after PO48 is gone. For the same reason, I got this big tube of undersea green, which again is a green that I really love. It granulates beautifully, and I like the fact that it's almost like unpredictable what it's going to look like. It leans a little bit more olive, and I just feel like it's the kind of green where I could just put a little bit of it to, I don't know, create foliage or trees, and because it just granulates so beautifully and because it kind of has a personality of its own, it would just do its own thing and end up looking wonderful. It is made up of PB29, PO48 and PY150. Then we have Cascade Green, whoops, which I've almost run out of. And yeah, I don't know, it's like, it's a green that I go in phases with. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I think it's just okay, but it has got a beautiful personality. And now as I'm swatching it, I'm like, okay, I love it again. But it's like a really bluey green that again granulates. And I think initially, like the times that I'm not that into it is when it's just sometimes it feels like it's a really, like there's a really bright green element to it and it almost feels like it's not that natural. And then other times I think this would just be the perfect green to add to a seascape or to a lake, and so it's just beautiful. It has PBR7 and PB15, so it's that PB15 that I guess perhaps I'm seeing that's making it sometimes look garish, but it is a beautiful green. It is almost over, and probably another one I should add to my list. Then we have Green Apatite Genuine, and this, like undersea green, is a green that I feel like you can just put down, let it do its own thing, and then it will look like incredible. And all you have actually done is let the paint move around on the paper. It's beautiful, it leans towards olive, and it just again really granulates. I think it has like a stronger granulating property, like it granulates a lot more than the other greens, at least to me, or I find the granulation a bit more striking. But I don't know if you can tell, I just really enjoy greens. It has, it's a Primatech color, so apparently Green Apatite is a stone or something that they have crushed to create this green. Either way, really beautiful green. Then we have Permanent Green Light, which is made up of PY3 and PG7. It's quite a bright green, and it's different to the other greens that I kind of feel like lean more natural. Instead, it's like a super bright spring green, which I don't tend to use very much. It looks a bit more animated, but I almost wonder like what would it look like for mixing. Even if I'm not mixing, like what if I were to just try and create some super bright landscapes? Like, you know, it makes me want to experiment and play a bit more. It's a green that I don't know, but I feel like I could use it with gouache, but when it comes to watercolors, I like more subdued, moody colors. Like this one, which is Perlin Green, and it is PBK 31, and I love this green. Again, it's a relatively new edition, but it's just such a moody green. It's unreal. Like, I absolutely love it. It almost looks black in mass tone, and then when you water it down, you can just see the moody green properties. Next we have Cobalt Teal Blue. Love the hue. I feel like I'm always looking for this hue. It's PG50, but I don't want it to granulate, and I know it does granulate, and it's normal for the pigment, but that's why I keep going back to it. I think, did I get it initially because... Yeah, no, I think I just like the color. I was wondering if I got it because I was using it so much in gouache, but I think actually I was just drawn to the color, and you'll see it granulates lots, but it's like a really nice sky blue that would also look really lovely in like when painting water. I'm kind of curious to know how it will compare to the manganese blue hue, just because I feel like the manganese blue hue would be cheaper, or maybe they're around the same price point. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious to know how they will compare. Then we have Mayan Blue Genuine, and this is another Primatech color, but actually, so when I got it and I swatched it out, I was confused because what I wanted was actually the Mayan Blue Dark. So this is still a nice color, but I was looking for something a lot darker, and I hadn't realized at the time that there were two, like there's a normal one and a dark one. Still, I think it's a beautiful blue, but I remember thinking like, oh, I thought it would be darker. It's a happy accident. Next we have Lunar Blue, and this has PB15 and PBK11, and I just think it's beautiful. Again, running out. It's funny because part of me doing this was because I wanted to see the colors and see what was running out, and then see like what I would want to replace and everything. And it's like, wow, everything is running out and I'm going to have to replace everything at the same time, which is a costly endeavor. But it's just really, really nice. I made a video kind of talking about, you know, mixing your own granulating colors. PBK11 is like Mars Black. PB15 is a phthalo blue, and I found that the really nice, interesting results came when you mixed a granulating color with a high tinting color like a phthalo or quinacridone, and that is essentially what Lunar Blue is. Then we have Indigo, which is PB60 and PBK6, and essentially I kept buying Indigo, but I think that what I actually want is Indanthrone Blue. The Indigo has PBK6 and PB60, and it is beautiful. But I do actually think that I wanted both, so I'm going to be adding Indanthrone Blue to my final palette because I just keep using it. I love using it in my blues and in my shadows, but I also really, really love this indigo. It leans a lot more blue than other indigos I've tried, and I had forgotten that. And I just find like sometimes the indigos just look like bluey greys, and they are a bit flat, whereas this has some pizzazz and personality, and I think that is because of the PB60, the Indanthrone Blue that's in it. Then we have Solodite Genuine, which is another Primatech colour, and I got them. New edition, did not explode, yay. Let me just And again, another color that just granulates. You can kind of see, I feel like, the colors that I am drawn to. Beautiful. And then we have Jane's Grey, which is PB29 and PBR7, the burnt sienna. And it's funny because I feel like it's the mix that I love to do. Like, I love creating, oops, and it's exploding, is it? Or is it not? It's the mix, it's the type of grey that I love to make, and that's why I was contemplating keeping the burnt sienna, even though on its own I don't really like it. Like, it's not that I dislike it, but on its own it looks so flat, no, compared to all the other colours. But then I really love mixing greys from it, which is a nice bluey grey. And then we have Ultramarine Staple PB29, oldie but a goodie, in staple in every palette. Almost finished for that reason. It's beautiful, it's rich. I can't fault it. And then we have a couple of phthalo blues, and I feel like, let me double check. So we have phthalo blue red shade, and we also have phthalo blue green shade. And phthalo blue red shade just says PB15. Phthalo blue green shade says PB15-3. So phthalo blue green shade is the phthalo blue that I feel we usually have in palettes. So this is the green shade. That beautiful electric blue we all know and love. But then I was kind of curious about phthalo blue red shade because I tend to like warmer reds. I tend to like warmer blues. I like blues that lean towards purple. I was intrigued for a number of reasons. Like, will we even see a difference? Let's see. Yeah, you can see a difference. This is warmer. Not quite as electric as the green shade. And then, last but not least, we have Iridescent Sapphire. Given how silver went, I'm really curious to see how this is going to go. It says mica, which PW20. So mica, titanium white, and that's it. Anyway, that's what it says. Ooh, exploding. I almost wonder, like, if I used, you know, a small amount of it when doing mountains or seas, you know, then you see the hint of blue, but you also see the shine. So that is nice. And that is it, my friends. These are the Daniel Smith watercolors that I have in my current collection. Oddly enough, I don't have all of these watercolors in a palette yet. Like, my Daniel Smith palette probably has, one has 18 colors and the other one has 21 colors, one has 12 colors, but I haven't got one with all these colors. And I'm looking forward to curating that, as well as replacing some of the colors that I have run out of. But I'm curious to know, as always, are there any colours that you would recommend? Are there any colours that you are really enjoying? The colours that I'm going to invest in, one is Amethyst, which I saw on Sarah Burns's channel. I am thinking about investing in a brown that granulates a little bit more, so that I have just a little bit more flexibility when mixing greys as well and when doing landscapes. But I don't know, I feel like I have quite a good and a vast collection, but I'm always keeping an eye out for interesting colors, perhaps a few more granulating ones as well. As always, I am always curious to know your thoughts, so if you are still watching, you are like the realist of MVPs, because I know that this was quite a long video, and I really, as always, appreciate you being here, appreciate you watching, and appreciate you being part of this community. Let me know that you are still watching by letting me know a color that you would recommend. It doesn't have to be Daniel Smith if that's not what you use, just a color that you are enjoying at the moment that you think would be fun to add to my palette. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.